likes this matchup here.
Yeah, I think it's solid for him. I think Abzan Control is good against decks that are trying to ramp into attacking plays, because Hero's Downfall, Abzan Charm, the sweepers, they're all pretty solid there.
Erik Smith, as we mentioned, an Invitational champion 2 years ago at our Season 3 Invitational in 2013 in New Jersey. Here's a Forest, and Elvis Mystic from VanMeter. We are underway here in round at number 4 from Baltimore. There's a Forest from Smith. It's just all about removal all day long for these Abzan Control decks. Keep the dragons off the battlefield and clean up from there.
And this is the type of matchup where Ash Cloud Phoenix may also be a very significant player for Chris. Yes, it can get exiled sometimes by Abzan Charm, but a spell that requires 2 removal spells, a good threat, and something if the game drags out where the morph-unmorphing shenanigans can be powerful. Chris already with 1 copy of that card in his hand, and it could be important for him in the matchup.
Looks like carry added there for VanMeter after the attack with the Elvish Mystic. We'll head back Smith's way. Land number 3 here for Erik. He'll sacrifice a Windswept Heath. Plains or Forest on the way as he goes down to 18. It'll be a Plains.
Color mana requirements now all set up as he has double green for Courser, double white for Elspeth down the line.
Yep, pretty easy stuff so far. Only thing he's missing at this point is double black for the 3 copies of Hero's Downfall. He'll play a copy of Courser Crewfix. We'll see the top card of his deck here in just a moment. Top card's a Fleecemane Lion. Smith does have 4 copies of that card in the deck. Some players kind of varies on if they like that card in this sort of strategy or not.
Well, it's something that shores up the early game. Also synergizes very nicely with sweepers, both in the main deck and after sideboarding. It's a card that has fallen out of flavor in these sort of decks because Deathmist Raptor fills a lot of the same function and synergizes better with Den Protector and Cinder Wayfinder if you want to be doing that sort of thing. But Fleecemane Lion still much better at shoring up the early game than Deathmist Raptor. Abzan decks sometimes just don't do anything until the 3rd turn of the game. If you're on the draw in a beatdown matchup, you can feel the difference between Fleecemane Lion and something like Deathmist Raptor.
VanMeter's got a turn 3 Stormbreath Dragon. His namesake card, I think Chris VanMeter, I think of this particular card entering the red zone. Smith's going to go down to 14, then gain a life up to 15, thanks to the Courser. Elspeth looks like it's headed towards the bottom from the Scry. Now the top card is a Forest. Smith does have an answer to the 4/4 flyer. Again, he is starting main deck copies of Ultimate Price this weekend, really to help against this card.
Well, he's got a main deck copy of End Hostilities and is in his hand right now. And it wouldn't surprise me here if Erik just does nothing this turn and hopes to get everything with End Hostilities. Right now, Erik doesn't have the mana for Hero's Downfall. He's missing double black untapped. And Abzan Charm can't target Stormbreath Dragon. It's possible Chris just lets it rip with another big threat this turn if he has it, and then End Hostilities might be too much for Chris to overcome.
Well, a good threat to let it rip with, as you mentioned, is actually Ash Cloud Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a good way. If Erik is on, I just got a slow hand with some removal, then Ash Cloud Phoenix is good in that spot. And if it happens that Erik is slow rolling something like End Hostilities or Crux of Fate, well, and Ash Cloud Phoenix does some work there as well.
Let's see what VanMeter is going to decide to go with here. We'll start by attacking with the Dragon. I think that's the easiest part. He'll go down to 11. Will Smith. Now I'm interested to see what Chris wants to do. Does he kind of put a read on Erik for a card like End Hostilities? Does he know he's playing against a more controlling build of the deck? He did just see an Elspeth. But most Abzan decks play that card.
What's tough about this spot for Chris is, from a tempo perspective, if he's worried about Abzan Charm, the worst thing he can do is cast Ash Cloud Phoenix. That allows Erik to kill that, untap, use a removal spell on the Stormbreath Dragon, stabilize the game. It's possible Chris wants to go on a different path and play something like Courser or Crewfix, and then End Hostilities is even more powerful against him.
It looks like that's the route he's going to go, is to Courser.
And you're seeing this play as a concession to Abzan Charm, which I think more often than not is the correct thing to be doing. But given the makeup of Erik's hand, this is going to be a disaster.
I wouldn't be surprised, too, if he just maybe plays a Forest and plays a Carry Added here. Because if he plays a land and a Carry Added, he's into monstrous range for Stormbreath Dragon.
Exactly.
This is where yep, he's going to tap 3 mana here. Maybe. Oh, boy, if it's a Morph, it's really bad.
Oh, man. Yeah, if he's playing something face down too, again, all the plays you're seeing right now, if you're asking why is Chris not doing the obvious thing and just playing that Ash Cloud Phoenix face up, it's because he's worried about Abzan Charm. He's trying to dead this turn from Erik's side. But the card is end hostilities, and now Chris is going to lose it all.
Yeah, forces the draw here. You see Den Protector on top of the deck. Smith is going to gain a life. We might even see an attack with the Courser. Not going to waste his time doing that. He's just going to cast end hostilities and clean everything up. The morph was Ash Cloud Phoenix. You'll see the rest of the creatures exit the battlefield. It's a devastating turn there for VanMeter.
And he doesn't even have double red for Ash Cloud Phoenix on the way back now. He is set really far behind. He doesn't even have 5 mana to play Den Protector and unmorph in 1 turn.
Yep.
If he plays this Den Protector face down and Erik has a removal spell, Chris is out of gas. He has nothing.
I would be actually very surprised if Chris did play Den Protector face down and hope that it doesn't die, when he can just hope to draw a land instead.
He can also just play, he can play carry out at this turn. I guess he's going to go for this.
It's a little risky. I mean, maybe the thinking here is, I hope that Erik thinks that this is a Deathmiss Raptor, something like that.
The thinking also might be, I just can't give up a turn like this. I need to get something going.
By the way, this one event hostilities was huge, to say the least.
Chris did a brilliant job on that previous turn playing around Obzone Charm, but that was not the card he needed to play around.
There's a siege round. I'm going to tie things up at 15 apiece here for each player. VanMeter does get to make it to his turn with the Den Protector. He'll draw a card. It's a copy of Dragon Lord Tarka. He's a little ways away from that.
This is a Dragon for Draconic Roar.
Step in the right direction.
There's a Wooded Foothills in the graveyard. He can get back with the Den Protector if he wants to go down that road. The problem is, it's not a haste threat, and it's not too hard for Erik to answer one big thing. That his deck is very well equipped to handle one big creature.
One Obzon Charm, one Hero's Downfall.
Yep. Elspeth at minus, There's
a carry added past the turn back. Smith will take a draw. Didn't get a great look at it. May have been a land, however. Siege Rhino on the battlefield is going to come across. Looks like VanMeter's going to go down to 11. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. Looks like that's going to stay on top. We'll have a morph here from Smith. It is very likely to be a Den Protector for him. We'll see if VanMeter knows that, however. He's looking at a copy of Draconic Roar. Might want to fire that off.
I like casting the Draconic Roar here because if it's Den Protector, you want to see what Erik gets back first before you determine what you want to get back with your Den Protector. The problem right now is if Chris goes, unmore Den Protector, get back Stormbreath Dragon, untap and attack you for a bunch, Erik goes, okay, get back end hostilities, untap, cast end hostilities, now you have nothing. So I think Chris actually needs the information. He needs Erik to make a decision first before he knows what he's supposed to get back with his own Den Protector.
If the assumption is that that's a Den Protector.
Right, and if it's not, well, that's also information that will inform your Den Protector. So I think Chris needs to do this now and then use the information to know what he wants to get back with Den Protector.
Well, here's the Roar. Reveal Dragon Lord Tarka. Smith will unmorph. And there is Den Protector, and we'll see what he wants to get back. And hostilities among the options down there, and he will take that. Perhaps he has some interest in resetting things.
Well, he needs to be able to threaten to do that at least. Otherwise, Chris can simply get back Stormbreath Dragon and start doing some pretty powerful stuff there.
Dragon Lord Tarkin and now Elvish Mystic in hand.
I mean, this is a tough spot for Chris. I mean, being able to apply enough pressure here to force end hostilities and still have something left over to win the game with is going to be pretty hard for him to do right now.
Might be time to disunmorph there, yeah. You want to get your damage in when you can.
It's hard for Chris to give up a point of damage in this spot.
Yeah. Gonna get back Wooded Foothills. Here comes an attack for 3. Smith's gonna go down to 9. I might get the Elvish Mystic here. And then he's 1 turn away from casting Dragon Lord Tarka. Yeah, that's what Chris is gonna set up. Erik is working with close to perfect information. The only thing he doesn't know is what's on top of Chris's deck.
And this is not a bad, this is, I think, the best thing that Chris can do is hope that Erik pulls the trigger on Hen Hostilities on this board, that he doesn't have much going on at all, and you have a couple turns to draw a land, and hopefully Dragon Lord Atarka can beat Erik's leftovers. It's not likely to work, but it's at least something.
So the former Invitational champion will take a moment and figure out what he wants to do now. He's got a lot of options in his hand. The only thing Smith is really missing here is lands. Yeah. He's got all the cards.
I think that if I was in Chris's spot there, I probably would have gotten back Stormbright Dragon. Say, Dragon Lord Atarka is no good this game. Treat it as a dead card. And hope that you can engineer the game such a way that you get in one hit with Stormbreath Dragon and then Crater's Claws is a live draw. If I'm in Chris's spot, I just don't believe that Dragon Lord Atarka is going to be good this game.
He does have 3 copies of Crater's Claws in the deck. So that's certainly an option.
I don't think any plan is likely to result in a victory, but that's the route I would have taken.
Chris is going to sacrifice Wooded Foothills on the upkeep. He's going to go down to 6, and I think we'll have a mountain coming here in just a moment. Yep, he will get a mountain. Den Protector appears to be the draw.
Den Protector is not bad here for Chris. If the whole plan is, I'm going to use Dragon Lord Atarka to force Erik's hand on end hostilities, well then you get to untap, play Den Protector, say go, unmorph it, get back Stormbreath Dragon. That's about the best case scenario for Chris right now.
Restart things again.
Yeah. The thing is, I think Chris needs to do something with Dragon Lord Atarka right now, because whatever line of play Chris chooses will probably force Erik's hand on his copy of End Hostilities. And if that's the case, you don't want to be left with Dragon Lord Atarka in your hand, because you're going to lose 2 of your mana, you're going to be down to 5 lands. So if you're going to choose a line of play with the intent of getting Erik to use his copy of End Hostilities, I think it's got to be the 7 mana spell now. Leave yourself with effectively a 5 mana spell left over in your hand with 5 lands in play.
There's 7 mana. All right, so here's Dragon Lord Atarka. The targets here will be interesting. He can kill Fleecebane Lion to clear a path, or he can just kill the Siege Rhino.
And that's a spot where I actually think my preference would have been for, looks like Erik's just taking the hit here.
There's Hero's Downfall. Okay. You would have maybe killed the Fleecebane Lion?
I think I would have killed Fleecebane Lion, so Erik has to either use a removal spell and then on the Den Protector and then cast End Hostilities, or take some points of damage.
Erik's going to go down to 5 now. Moving through his turn pretty quickly, so it looks like he's got a plan here. He does have a copy of Sorin in hand.
Yeah, that might be the payoff here. Sorin plus, gain a nice chunk of life.
Gain 4 life, go back up to 9, put Chris down to 2. It's not a bad sequence. There's a morph. It's actually really good sequencing too. Good to play the morph first and then the Sorin if you're going to plus it.
Yep.
Make sure that you get the bonus on both creatures until the end. Now you come in here for 4 lifelink. Your morph is a 3/2 on defense that has lifelink. Chris is down to 2. You're up to 9. Pretty good turn. Take a draw. A forest. Not exactly what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, that was great sequencing there by Erik, pulling himself out of Crater's Claws range.
And also, his morph actually gets the block Den Protectors, and
yeah,
they both have the same power.
Yeah, this is a really nice turn there from Erik. Realized what the risks were and played accordingly. And he didn't really want to use the end hostilities in that spot because Chris draws, let's say, Storm Breath Dragon off the top, and now you're in trouble. This way, he still has end hostilities left over in case Chris draws something really good. On top of that, Chris might just die.
Yep.
He's at 2. I mean, we've been sort of talking a lot this game about Chris is on offense. He's the one trying to apply all this pressure. He's the one trying to get Erik in a Crater's Claws range, but Chris himself is facing lethal.
Chris in some real trouble here. That's a decent place to start. I would be surprised if Erik took this damage. Oh, if it's going to Soren, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't mind that at all. There's a morph. Might see Chris pass the turn back here. Might just unflip now, though.
I think he may be unflipping right now with the intent of getting back Draconic Roar and killing the Fleece Mane Lion.
Okay. No dragon in play or to reveal, but that's all right. Gotta kill the morph. Pass the turn back. Carry added, ready to block. Erik's got a pretty clean turn here. A couple different routes he can go. He can end hostilities everything away and then cash in the Soren to make a vampire.
Yeah.
That's a 2/2 flyer. That's lethal.
But even the most attractive play on the surface, which I believe is just go monsters with Fleece Mane Lion plus Soren, gain a bunch of life, does leave Erik dead on the way back to Crater's Claws. So Chris has done a very good job here. He's actually gotten Erik to pull the trigger on that copy of End Hostilities.
Well, Chris needs a big draw here.
With nothing left in hand.
Yep, there's a temple. That's not going to do it. So Erik Smith is going to win game number 1 here over Chris VanMeter. Obs on control, up a game over Green Red Dragons. Pretty interesting back and forth affair there, though.
Chris played a great game there. I mean, it looked like Erik had so many resources to work with and whittled down Chris's life total. He's able to play that game in such a spot where if he draws a removal spell there, he's in business. Or even if he draws a flyer. I mean, he has to fade draw steps on Erik's side of the table, but Erik was just down to a 2/2 flyer in play and lands in hand when a couple turns earlier it looked like he was just going to easily attrition Chris out of the game. Very nicely done by Chris, even though it was in a losing effort.
Erik Smith does win game number 1. We will take a look at, Chris VanMeter's sideboard, though, since he will be on the play.
2 copies of Magma Spray, 2 copies of Seismic Rupture, 2 copies of Roast, 2 copies of Plummet, a Destructive Revelry, a Rending Volley, a Hornet Nest, a Chandra Pyromancer, Xenagos the Reveler, Outpost Siege, Twin Bolt. The cards that really stand out to me here, Outpost Siege, Xenagos the Reveler, Chandra, just all great cards for a game that's going to be going on for a while. And the 2 copies of Rose Sinister, Siege Rhino, and likely some Tassigers in the sideboard as well.
On the other side of things here for Smith, he's got 3 Arishan Clerics, 2 Drown and Sorrow, so he doesn't want to lose to Mono Red this weekend. 2 Read the Bones, 2 Duress, another copy of End Hostilities, 2 Master of the Unseen, a Bile-Blight, and 2 Dromoka's Commands.
There really aren't any standout cards here, with the exception of the 1 copy of End Hostilities. It's possible Erik wants the copies of Duress as well, anticipating that Chris is going to be bringing in Planeswalkers and cards like Outpost Siege on top of the cards that he has, like Crater's Claws, which are not the easiest thing for Erik to answer. But there isn't a lot of sideboarding to be done here. Erik's got a very solid Game 1 matchup, and he's light on action in the sideboard as a result.
It doesn't surprise you that he is late. It doesn't surprise you, that he is light on sideboard action because Game 1 is so good. He doesn't need a ton.
Right, he's much more concerned about low-end aggro decks. You see 3 copies of Ration Cleric, 2 copies of Drown Sorrow, and a Bile-Blight in the sideboard because he knows Game 1 he's behind against the Atarka Reds of the world. But his deck full of Heroes Downfalls and Abzan Charms naturally going to be good against a deck like Green Red Dragons where they're just casting a lot of 4 and 5 mana spells that you can answer with your removal. So not a lot going on the sideboard, but that's a function of how good his matchup is Game 1.
We will talk about the Star City Games newsletter. It has been revamped. We've made some changes, and it is your source for Magic the Gathering news.
Yeah, if you're looking for articles from the website, Cedric over here handpicked some good ones. Some of them are on the premium side, some of them are on the select side. We have the match of the week. There's some content exclusive to the newsletter, like deck lists and advice from some of the premium writers like Brad Nelson, Todd Anderson, Brian Bronduin, and an exclusive Cardboard Crack comic. Best of all, sign up is free, and you can head over to starcitygames.com/newsletter to get signed up now.
Pretty sweet stuff available there. You can find Chris VanMeter in that newsletter pretty often, providing some very specialized content. I know he would have written about what he would have played in the Open Series this weekend, which unsurprisingly would have been Green Red Dragons. Though the build that he is playing is different than what Rill is playing. I think that's what's notable. Rill, with his win last weekend at the Open Series in Indianapolis, he had Rabblemaster, he had Den Protector, he had Deathmiss Raptor. He wasn't going this coarser Dragonlord Tarka route. So Chris is going back to the strategy that won him the Open in Syracuse, while Rill is using the strategy that won him the Open in Indianapolis last weekend.
Exactly. Chris going to a slightly bigger build of the deck. Dragonlord Tarka, Corsair Crewfix, just trying to make more land drops and overpower people. And Erik Rill's deck, I think of Erik Rill's deck as an Elvish Mystic deck. With turn 2 Goblin Rabblemaster and just a more aggressive, leaner curve. His draw is very explosive when he has his copy of Elvish Mystic. I think of Chris VanMeter's deck as more of a Sylvan Caryatid deck. He's trying to ramp up to bigger plays. His mana needs to be a little bit more stable. He's conceding a little bit of explosiveness, but the top end of Dragonlord Tarka is so good, and Corsair Crewfix is just nice in that kind of skeleton that there's just different trade-offs. Even for a deck as linear and straightforward seeming as Dragons is, there are definitely different ways to build the deck, and Chris VanMeter and Erik Rill have had success both with very different styles.
I mean, same idea.
Same style. You want Stormbreath Dragon and Thunderbreak Regent and a top end involving Crater's Claws. The core of the deck is the same, but the details are very different, and it makes the two decks play out very differently from one another.
Both players going to take a look at their opening hands. VanMeter will be on the play here, and what is a pretty tough matchup for him. This is certainly one reason he's playing Abzan Control. Both players going to keep. Looks like it's a Rugged Highlands to begin here for Chris as he's up to 21. Smith will draw. It's a copy of Temple of Malady. That'll be his first land. Top card goes to the bottom. He does have End Hostilities in hand yet again. Very potent in game number 1. There is Elvish Mystic past that turn back.
Though you can look at Chris's hand, he's a little bit better to fight this kind of fight with Zyndagost the Reveler and Chandra Pyromaster in hand. He's not as exposed to End Hostilities as he was game 1. He can sort of diversify his angles of attack here.
There's the Fleeceman line. The issue here for Chris at this point is it doesn't appear as though he has land number 3. He could peel it, which he did. That is important. He is also staring at a roast for the Fleeceman line, so we'll see what route he wants to go.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now with the Planeswalkers is the fact that Erik has led with a Fleeceman Lion, meaning that the Planeswalker is under duress. That's not something that commonly happens against Abzan Control this early on in the game. So Chris might go into a different route here where he tries to set up Corsair Crewfix, sets up a turn with Roast and a Planeswalker in the same turn. If he's playing a land here, he's clearly not going down the Corsair Crewfix route.
Yeah, this is interesting because, you know, on this turn, he could play Chandra, plus it won't die. You know, Fleeceman Lion won't kill it. Or you could play Xenagos, make a Satyr token, have it back on defense, and cross your fingers. I'm not sure which route is best in this situation.
I think Chandra is the safer place to go. I'd be really surprised to see Chris fire off his Xenagos here, because Xenagos is one of the more important cards in the matchup. It gives Chris some staying power, makes him less exposed to end hostilities, and I don't think he wants to be in a position where Erik goes, all right, I have a removal spell for your Satyr, attack Xenagos, and that's the end of it. He needs to get a little bit more out of Xenagos than just that.
Well, here's Chandra. It'll take up to 5. Smith will take 1. He's down to 19, past the turn back. Fleeceman Lion cannot kill that all by itself. It could get a little help from Abzan Charm, though. Looks like Windswept Heath was the draw. And he's going to sacrifice that very quickly, Will Smith. If he called Abzan Control, it's looking like Abzan aggro right now.
Well, it certainly played that sort of game in game 1. Erik does want to get this Planeswalker off the board as soon as possible. Now, this means that the roast in Chris's hand has gotten quite a bit better, but ultimately, if these players are sort of trading resources off and making their land drops and no one's really getting attacked, Eric's happy to play that sort of game.
And here's Abzan Charm. Pump up the jam, give the beatdowns.
And this still amounts to an even exchange of cards because Erik is trading Fleeceman Lion and Abzan Charm for Chandra, which did basically nothing, 1 point of damage to Erik at the end of it, and a Roast. So even though Roast is really good here for Chris, it's not the end of the world on Erik's side of the table. And if Chris doesn't have Roast, he's in a world of trouble.
Manic Influence was the draw there for VanMeter, so things get interesting here because, does he want to go the Xenagos route, or does he just decide, maybe I can go Storm Breath Dragon and go to the skies? Maybe I just play Xenagos? It all gets very unclear at this point. He will play Xenagos. Looks like he's going to up it, and now he's going to cast a Roast. So he wants to get his Xenagos on the board. That much is clear.
Yes.
Because he had a lot of different ways he could go that turn. He could have just played Courser and roasted. Let's see what we got now. Hero's Downfall will take care of that.
What I liked about Erik's play there is set him up for Storm Breath Dragon and make a 2/2 Satyr token and attack you this coming turn.
Sure. VanMeter will draw.
But this is, you're seeing why the matchup can be really challenging for Dragons sometimes. Chris has drawn 2 of his best sideboard cards in Chandra and Xenagos. Also had a Roast in a really good spot for Roast. And he might just be dead to end hostilities again. Even though he had a lot of cards here that let him play a different sort of game plan.
Yeah, Smith is only down to 13.
Yeah. Chris has spent a lot of turns answering Erik's plays and vice versa.
Here's a Thoughtseize. There goes Courser. Now VanMeter's empty-handed. Smith is looking to run away with this thing. I think he's got an ultimate price in hand, too, for the Dragon. Yes, he does. So now VanMeter's got to draw some good ones.
He's got more good ones post-board. A Planeswalker here would be great, but he's running out.
Well, Storm Breath Dragon isn't the worst draw. This actually allows him to attack for 5. All of a sudden, it's a 2-turn game. That's a huge draw there from VanMeter.
It's as good as it's going to get.
Yeah. Smith will draw a card. It's a Siege Rhino, not a bad draw. He'll play that, go up to 8. But if VanMeter is able to draw a land, this game is over, folks. Take a draw, Xenagos. Not exactly what he was looking for. Can I take the Monstrosity on the Storm Breath Dragon? Here's an attack for 4. Smith's going to go down to 4. There's Xenagos. I imagine we'll have a Satyr token here in just a moment. Pass that turn back. Smith will draw. Looks like it was a copy of Llanowar Waste.
I don't think Erik has double white.
I don't think he does either. I think that's the big problem here. And Hostility is in hand, but does not have double white. There is the Satyr token for VanMeter off of the Xenagos.
I don't know how many times in the last 2 years we've said, all right, game's looking bad for Chris, it's slipping away, and a Storm Breath Dragon comes off the top, and then 2 turns later, it's a win.
It seems like a lot, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it is a reoccurring theme. There's another Siege Rhino. Pass the turn back, Will Smith over to VanMeter. He'll untap. Take a draw here, Will Chris. Picked up a copy of Roast.
Roast will do.
Yeah, not even necessary at this point. He can just take up Xenagos and go Monstrous on the Storm Breath Dragon. He has to be a little bit concerned with Murderous Cut. But yeah. He can't beat Murderous Cut anyway, at least in my opinion, given this game. So, not a ton to worry about.
I also think that you would have just seen you would have already seen Murderous Cut. You probably would have seen a different tapping of mana that turn. I guess the tapping of mana is not, he only has the one source of black mana, so a pain-free black mana.
He will cast Roast. I suppose this is lethal attack too. Yeah.
This is a slight, everything's lethal. It's just, if he goes for Monstrous on Stormblood Dragon and Erik randomly has a Murderous Cut in his hand, it's really bad for Chris. If he has Murderous Cut in that spot, we play on.
Yeah, he cuts the Dragon, takes 3, goes to 4. I don't love Chris's position there, but
there's a game. There's still a game.
It's still a game. Either way, Chris VanMeter is going to win game number 2 here over Erik Smith. Green-Red Dragons, Obstinate Control, going to get ready for game number 3. Smith being on the play here is certainly a big deal.
Yep. If he had double white and land number 5 there on time, I think that Erik's in a very good position. But, his draw up to that point was excellent. He had not stumbled at all. He had a removal the entire, for the entire game there, was able to answer Planeswalkers. Not the easiest thing for him to answer. But the first stumble he really encountered was lane number 5 in double white, and unfortunately for Erik, that was the stumble he couldn't overcome.
Well, as I said, Smith, he is a former Invitational champion in 2013, and VanMeter, well, he got really close a couple of weeks ago. He got second place at our Season 2 Invitational. One thing people might not know is he has 17 Open Series top 8s.
And surprisingly, for a player with 17 Open Series top 8s and 4 wins, that Invitational top 8 was his first one.
Yeah, it is really, really surprising, but it's something that he finally got to kind of knock off the list. I know it's something that was kind of eating away at him a little bit there.
Yeah, and Chris, several Magic players out there with a mixture of growing up, being involved in sort of academic pursuits and sports, played college football in Spokane, Washington, was also a top-rated chess player in grade school.
Him and BBD, they like to battle in chess. Might be a way to start off a versus video in the future here. Whoever wins the game of chess gets to go first.
I guess it's unfortunately chess is a close to zero variance game, and so the same person gets to be on the play over and over again.
I suppose the better chess player gets to be on the play?
Right.
Okay.
Arm wrestling has a similar problem. Like once we've seen who's the better arm wrestler, we know who the better arm wrestler is.
I bet there's more strategy to arm wrestling than you're giving it credit for.
That could be true. I don't know. It doesn't strike me that that's the case, but I'm not an expert.
Neither am I. And I actually can't beat anyone in arm wrestling.
Now, chess, I would not want to watch for play draw, but chess boxing for play draw, you sign me up. I don't know. You could charge a lot for a premium subscription, and I would pay it if chess boxing was involved.
What exactly is chess boxing?
It's a round of boxing and then some chess, and you just alternate until it's a knockout or checkmate.
Is that a real thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's too real.
Is that like... I wasn't sure if that was maybe just a New Jersey thing.
No, that's a real thing.
Okay.
That's a real thing.
All right. Is there a pro tour for chess boxing?
I assume so.
Yep.
The last time that we talked about chess boxing on the air, I got tweeted at by the London Chess Boxing Club. So it's a real thing.
I'm going to read the definition of this. It is a hybrid fighting sport.
Gas.
Which is already a great start. That combines the two traditional sports, chess and boxing. The competitors fight in alternating rounds of chess and boxing.
Yep.
Really good.
Really important to be good at boxing.
Really good.
From what I've gathered from what I've seen online.
Yeah, you need to be good at the boxing part.
It's really easy to teach a boxer how to play a reasonable defensive game of chess. It's not easy to teach the average chess player how to play a defensive round of boxing. That's where the game sort of breaks down.
What a wonderful world we live in.
Yeah.
Where chess boxing is just a thing that people do.
Who's really good at chess boxing? Mike Tyson's really good at chess boxing. I don't know if he knows the rules to chess, but...
I had to get that far. So I suppose it is possible that we could get to the chess portion of that match.
Maybe.
You just run from Tyson for the 3 minutes.
Dude, that's a lot harder than you think.
Well, I didn't say it was going to be easy, but that could be your game plan.
The ring is only so big.
Side to side. Side to side. That's right. Keep your hands up, side to side. Yeah. You get through that first round, you can destroy him in chess.
Here's the thing. If you go back and watch young Tyson, a lot of boxers tried to take that approach, and it did not work out.
Not successful?
Right.
No.
And they were really good at moving around the ring, way better than you and I would be.
That's all I'm saying. A little side to side, block. Probably wouldn't even bother jabbing. No reason to throw any punches.
If you, like a mere mortal, try to block a punch, he would still knock you out and break both of your hands punching through your block.
That's probably true. Chris is going to take a look at 6 cards here. Smith has kept his 7.
But that game is sweet. And if BBD and CVM were to chess box, I would watch.
My money's on CVM.
I like Chris too, but I would at least want to see the matchup, you know?
Sure. You know who'd be sneaky good at that?
Who?
Tom Ross.
I think so.
Yeah. Doesn't say a lot, but probably has a boxing history.
Probably more game in both than we would expect.
Oh, yeah.
Andrew Boswell, Reed Duke has got to be really good at chess boxing.
Really good at chess boxing.
I believe that he's probably really good at both.
Here's a courser. Take a look at the top card, Den Protector. VanMeter will take a draw step. Ashclaw Phoenix is what he's found. It's time for a roast. Get the courser off the battlefield. Den Protector will be turned face down, but that'll be Smith's draw for the turn. There's a Temple. Top card here for Smith. Now it goes to the bottom.
And Erik's hand's beautiful right now. He's got a 5th land, Obs on Charm, Hero's Downfall, and Den Protector. It's going to be able to answer Chris's first couple threats. Even if they're Planeswalkers, Erik has good answers.
There's a Forest for VanMeter. VanMeter does have Thunderbreak Regent and Ash Cloud Phoenix in hand. He'll play Ash Cloud Phoenix to start. You mentioned Abzan Charm. That's going to take care of the Phoenix for good.
This is the problem that, Chris has gone through effort when he can to sort of play around Erik's responses. He doesn't want Erik killing things at the end of Chris's turn, and he's played his threats accordingly. Now, with no action until the fourth turn, he's just got to cast his stuff and weather the storm of removal spells, and that's a much worse spot for Chris to be in than being able to kind of work around what Erik's doing.
It just got a lot more difficult, too, because now there's going to be a Siege Rhino that's clocking him the entire time.
Yep. And if Chris wants to use another Roast in hand, well, that's a turn he's taking off from putting a threat into play.
I think he almost doesn't have a choice at this point. It just seems too hard to say, you know what, I'm going to try to race you by playing a Thunderbreak Regent. I hope you don't have a removal spell in hand. It's just so unlikely.
I think that both paths are pretty rough. I think Chris has to get something going because it's not just about being able to win the race against Siege Rhino. He's got to beat Erik's other cards too. And if he takes another turn off, I think it's just too hard. It's just going to be too hard, especially with him knowing that Den Protector is in Erik's hand. I don't think he can play this game where, he goes, all right, I'll kill your Siege Rhino, and Erik goes to go, all right, Den Protector face down, go, against no board from Chris. I think he's got to play a little bit risky this game.
We saw the Rhino come across. That's why VanMeter's down to 13. Smith will sacrifice that Windswept Teeth, get a basic Plains out of the deck. Den Protector will be the play. And he will happily pass the turn back over to VanMeter. Smith with a pretty nice lead so far. VanMeter will take a draw. Ash Cloud Phoenix is what he's found.
That really needed to be land number 5.
Would have been helpful. 2 spells in 1 turn would have been nice.
Yep. Or just casting Stormbreath Dragon this turn.
Yep. Instead, little Thunderbreak Regent action in the red zone. Smith goes down to 17. Crater's Claws is going to go after the Den Protector. Smith is able to unmorph this. Get back Abzan Charm. Crystal has the ability to roast the Siege Rhino here, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, and I like the sequencing from Chris here. He does not want Erik getting back a Siege Rhino right now.
Yeah.
So get rid of the Den Protector first, then put the Siege Rhino in the graveyard.
Feels like Chris is stolen the initiative back a little bit here.
Right, and if it's Erik's whole turn to use Abzan Charm on Thunderbreak Regent, because, Abzan has a lot of 3-mana spells, so if he's on 5 mana, it probably represents 1 spell a turn, and Chris draws land number 5, well, now you have a Stormbreath Dragon in play that gets to clock once. Erik takes some points of damage using Abzan Charm on Thunderbreak Regent, and you got a game again.
Well, Smith plays a land. It's a Windswept Teeth. He's got some things to think about. We'll start by playing a Morph. Pass the turn back, likely to be a Den Protector. VanMeter will take a draw step. Perhaps now is time for land number 5.
But Erik showing a lot of respect for the possibility there of a Stormbreath Dragon. And leaving up 3 mana so he has access to Hero's Downfall.
You got to respect it.
Yep. I mean, last game Erik won from what felt like a pretty comfortable position. And that was just a couple shots from Stormbreath Dragon and some incidental damage the rest of the way. And that's what killed him. And if Erik has to concede a little bit of tempo here to make sure he doesn't get tagged by Stormbreath Dragon, while at 17 life, he's going to do it. The problem here is also Chris's hand is actually the one that's cumbersome. Usually that's the problem that Abzan Control has, but everything Chris is looking at is 4 or 5 mana. He can't cast 2 spells in 1 turn. Xenagos off the top, if he's assuming that morph is Den Protector, well, that's really off the table because Den Protector unmorphs and kills Xenagos. There's no blocking that.
I think we're probably in maybe Ash Cloud Phoenix territory now.
Ash Cloud feels like the right thing to be casting right now. It's all of your mana, and it's a little awkward for Erik to kill, hopefully.
Well, you know Erik has Obson Charm in hand, so it's actually not difficult for him to kill at all, but I just don't think you have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least you're forcing the issue right now. The problem is if you say go, then Erik gets to unmorph the Den Protector, get back Siege Rhino, and that's way worse from a tempo perspective.
I do not think go is an option.
Yeah. I don't think Xenagos is an option.
I don't think that's an option either.
I don't think casting this face down is an option.
So I think you do this, you make him use the Obson Charm on this. You might even be happier that it's killing that and not letting him draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
So both copies of Ashclaw Phoenix have been exiled. Smith will draw a card. He's going to unmorph the Den Protector. That'll get a counter, of course. Going to get back the Rhino. Here's an attack for 3. VanMeter's down to 10. He's going to go down to 7 in just a moment, and Smith is back up to 15.
And I really like this angle of attack here from Erik. Just punishing Chris while he's stumbling on his lands a little bit.
Roast the draw. Seen worse.
But we're looking at his whole turn again. Unless he's casting Den Protector face up.
Hey, nobody's excited to cast Den Protector face up, but I might be able to get on board with that. Maybe.
Magic players, if you
He might actually have to consider leaving back Thunderbreak region now.
Commander Pod.
I don't think that's a winning play. I'd rather cast Roast on Siege Rhino, cast Den Protector face up, and attack than do that.
Okay.
At 7, facing 3 points of damage, you got 3 turns. That's a lot of time to draw out of this.
There's Roast.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, but I think that Chris has got to consider casting this Den Protector face up. I think even if he draws land number 5 untapped, he's got other better things to be doing.
Here comes Thunderbreak region. Smith's going to go down to 11. It is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It's not the prettiest thing we've ever seen Den Protector face up, but you got to do what you got to do.
Listen, I know it breaks your heart, but he's behind a little bit. He's got other things to be doing with his mana.
2-turn clock now.
Yep.
See how Smith combats this. Smith is certainly ahead at this point.
Yes. But there's a lot of reach in Chris's deck between Haste Creatures and Crater's Claws. We saw this in game 2. Things looked really safe for Erik in the second game, and that got away from him.
Erik looking at a Hero's Downfall, Den Protector in hand as well. Thought Seize and Read the Bones, I believe, are the other cards. Den Protector cannot be blocked. So here's a morph as VanMeter is down to 4. Time to draw. Smith is going to have to be pretty careful here. VanMeter picks up a Courser of Prufix.
Terry Burkeen for customer service, please.
Smith with Hero's Downfall at the ready.
And I don't know if Chris can beat a removal spell at this stage.
I'm not sure that he can. I think that's what he might be trying to work into his calculations. Also, you take a look at Courser and how much of an effect that can have on things, and it seems like it's very minimal at this point.
Yeah, not enough time and no blocking to be done with it.
Continue the match with 5 additional turns.
It's a really tough spot to be in.
I mean, Chris has got to play this game assuming there's no removal spell because he can't beat a removal spell. What he can do is attack, hope that Erik trades Den Protectors, and then go from there.
A step in the right direction.
If Chris attacks and Erik goes no blocks and sits on Hero's Downfall, I don't think there's much for Chris to do. I suppose Erik will probably use Hero's Downfall inside of combat on Thunderbreak region out of respect for Crater's Claws.
As he should. That's the card. That's if you're Erik, that's the card you have to worry about is Crater's Claws.
That's the one you're thinking about right now.
I just have to do whatever it takes to not lose to that card. Here's an attack.
Yeah.
Erik will take the 2.
And that attack is basically the white flag here because if Chris's follow-up was good enough to win this game, he would have to be attacking with Thunderbreak region. If he's not, I don't think there's much for Chris to do.
Here's Xenagos. Looks like he's going to make a Satyr token to put on defense. Well, you call it the white flag, and that's what it feels like. Hero's Downfall is going to go after the Thunderbreak region. 3 damage will be dealt to Smith. And then he's able to unmorph another Den Protector, get back a Siege Rhino, and put a finish to this game. And that is going to do it. Erik Smith is going to win this match here over Chris VanMeter. 2-1. Obzon Control takes care of Green Red Dragons. And though VanMeter was able to get 1 game, you can see how difficult that matchup is for him.
Yeah, he had to get pretty fortunate to take the game that he got. And I think that, I think that Erik's build of the deck is going to have a little bit more of an impact.